Hi, I'm kara-leah and I publish the Yoga Lunchbox. I want to continue on with this new stream that's unfolding that started with the I give up experience about almost 2 weeks ago now. And I want to track back a little bit to establish a ground of being as such. So about 11 years ago, almost 11 years ago in August, I had 2 episodes of psychosis. One way to look at it, but there was another aspect wrapped up in that as well, particularly in the first episode of psychosis, which was triggered in part by what was going on in my emotional life, having a really difficult time with my fiance, and the way that I dealt with conflict and with difficult emotions was to go into denial and not to deal with it at all. So I was in this place where all of these feelings were coming up and I was denying their existence to myself and also to him. And so that was starting to create a schism within myself because I was in essence denying my body, and that was sending me more and more up into my mind. Plus I was taking drugs, I know, mushrooms, marijuana, LSD, ecstasy, cocaine. That was about it at the time. And those things were starting to, of course, open doors of perception and mess with my experience of reality. So, and I was doing yoga and meditating too. So it was kind of like a perfect storm, and I definitely do not recommend setting that up at all. Well, what it did lead to was this awakening. An experience whereby it's really hard to describe. How to describe an awakening. The entire way with which I perceived reality, even the I itself, just shifted, just completely changed. There was no I. It's really hard to conceive. Yet I became everything, and everything became me. And in that becoming of all and all becoming, I also knew everything. Like there was a total instantaneous download of all information. It's like becoming the internet or something. And it blew my circuits, totally blew my circuits, because I had not done the required work. So when you're on a path of self-realization or awakening, what you're doing is you are slowly sifting through the psyche, and you're working through samskaras or patterns of behavior, etc., and clearing so that you can become a channel for this when it happens. And I hadn't done the hard work. So all of that stuff in my psyche that was still there, it just all came out at once, and I ended up in the psych ward twice. However, after that, shifted the way that I perceived and experienced reality. It was forever different. And I talked a little bit about it on my website when I talked about Kundalini awakening. Yet I didn't talk a lot about it because I'd also been crazy, right? I had a certificate to prove it from the psych ward. And my experience of reality had shifted so much, but I didn't want to share it with people because they'd think I was crazy, right? And at the time, this is 2004, my experience at reality, there was no one around me that I knew that was having a similar experience. And the world felt like it was very different. So in the 11 years that's between then and now, what has happened is that all of that hard work I hadn't done before the awakening, it's like you had this awakening and everything's like, oh my God, bliss, samadhi, it's all amazing. Shit, you come back down to real life and you're still the same. In fact, it's worse, because now you've experienced that, and now you're back and living in fear, stuck in the separate sense of self and in the ego with all the issues and problems that I'd always had. So I spent 11 years doing the work. And in those 11 years, there's like layers dissolve and insights arise and realizations, and they're just little things. And then occasionally there'll be like something big that I'll get. I don't want to make this too long, but yeah, so things keep shifting. And so the moment that happened last week, that I give up, that was a bigger moment of dissolving and coming back to that ground of beingness, whereby I'm not in my ego. I'm not in the ego. There's still an ego it's like wearing a costume or something. Like, I'm still functioning, no doubt about that. I'm not awakened either. I'm not enlightened. But the way that I perceive the world is different from the way that probably most people perceive. And the key difference is that I don't perceive any separation, any difference, any between me and between you. And if I sat with it for a while with this bench, me and the bench would probably become pretty close too. You know, like it's just the chicken, whatever. It's like it's all consciousness arising, and there is. It's like my identity is no longer with the I per se. What does this mean, man? Where is this going? How is this relevant to the fact that the rainforests are burning down and the eastern cougar is now extinct, or maybe it's a western cougar? What has this got to do with it all? This is what it's got to do with it all. So I love this guy, Charles Eisenstein, Sacred Economics. My understanding of the world is that as we all awaken, which we will, because this is the evolution of humanity, right? This is learning those lessons of no longer being driven by fear and instead coming from love. Not in a new age woo-woo, we need love kind of way, but in a real grounded, practical, where you experience reality from kind of way. When you come from this place, the decisions and choices that you make are different. You make decisions and choices that benefit the whole because you are the whole. How could you make any other kind of decision? I can't take from you for my own gain, because if I'm taking from you, I'm taking from me. It just doesn't make any sense, right? I'll try and make it concrete. I'll give you a little example. So I'm on a road trip with two girlfriends, and we go into the shop and there's pies on sale, so I buy everyone a pie and we come back into the car and it's like, okay, who wants what pie? Real small thing, right? But you see, I have no preference. I have no preference on which pie, because whatever, it's all pretty much the same. And so everyone chooses a pie and we're eating away, and I've got a different pie from my girlfriend. She's like, can I have a bite of yours? I'm like, yeah, totally, I'll have a bite of yours. And we each have bites, and she's like, oh, I like yours more. And I'm like, keep it. And she's like, what? And I'm like, well, you like it more. So if you keep my pie, we're going to up the enjoyment quota collectively in the car, because all of a sudden you're enjoying that pie more, and I don't have a preference, right? So I can eat my pie or I can eat your pie, same, but your joy level has increased. And she's like, whoa, it's really cool. And I'm like, yeah, that's a different way to live, right? Where there's no sort of win-lose. It's more along the lines of, how can we collectively increase the joy level in the car? And you know what? I would have even been willing to eat her pie if I liked it a little bit less, just because seeing her joy level rise made my joy level rise, because I am her. Right? It's really that simple. And it is a different way to perceive life, a different way to be in life. It's an awesome way to be in life. And for me, I find it comes and goes. Right? So what will happen is I'll get triggered, and one of my fears, layers of egos, issues, whatever, will start to come up, and I'll shift out of that state of being and flow and back into the fear and the ego. And then this is not a bad thing either. This is just there's some work to do there. Back into being and coming from that place. And so there's like back and forth and back and forth. Coming back to what this means for us, though, is that when more and more people are coming from that place of effortless being, where all is one, without it being woo-woo, we make different choices. So we don't burn down the forest in order to make money, because it doesn't really serve the collective joy and beingness of all the beings on the world. It just doesn't make any sense. It's like, that's crazy, man. Yet at the same time, we have to face the fact that not everyone's waking up right now, or it's taking time, or it's like, okay, so how do we bridge? I guess that's what I'm getting to, is how do we bridge? So here's what I'm doing. I am explaining to you my field of being and how I interact with life from this place. And the reason I'm doing it now is if I feel like if I had talked about this 10 years ago, people would have just looked at me and said, she's fucking crazy, man. A, because I'd just come out of the psych ward, and B, because the world was different 10 years ago. It feels to me now, like as I go out and mix in society and go to women's networking groups, business networking groups, etc., that people are way closer now to where I am. So it feels like I can bridge the gap in a way that I couldn't do 10 years ago. So this series of videos is going to be about how I am living my life from this place of beingness, and how I'm taking concrete steps through things like this book and what it puts into action to bring about a world that's lived from that place. Okay, and in doing so, you may see how you can live from that place, start to explore what is that place like, what is it like if I drop off where, how do I do that, and make different decisions in your life. I don't know, it's a giant experiment, and I'm just going to see what unfolds. I'm going to try and make these videos less than 10 minutes every time though, so that more people watch them and you stay tuned. So that's my idea for today, just talking about what awakening is in a grounded, real way. It is a shift in the way that you experience the world, so you're no longer coming from a place of separateness, us and them, yours and mine. Irrelevant, doesn't even exist. Awakening is when all of a sudden we are the same. It is all the same, and the way that you interact with the world as a result shifts and changes, and therefore the experience of the world shifts and changes. I'm Kara-leah. There will be more.